Ashe, 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 and Grand Rising. A grand day to you all once again, my very beautiful people, and especially you, my awakened and enlightened people the world over. Yes, 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 yes. You don't know that it is yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. And as customary, along with some of my recorded chirping bird sounds and some of my rusty finger picking guitar playing in the background, and I'm here to share with you some more of my unique and thought-provoking perspectives and insights. Yes, it's been a while, but I'm back. And yes, my people, it's high time for reason and for reasoning. In fact, if I might add, it is high time for thinking and for reasoning. Now, the topic that I will speak on and timely share with you this grand rising is titled The Prophetic End, One Step Closer. Yes, the prophetic end. One step closer. You may no doubt remember my song, One Step Closer to a new, to a world war, to a nuclear war disaster. Yes, so that's the topic this morning, or this grand rising, this beautiful day, wherever you are listening. The prophetic end, one step closer. And in this talk, or in this presentation, I will answer the question and share with you, from my unique thought-provoking perspectives, as customary, and insights, why I, the Mystic Philosopher, strongly believe that the US and NATO, and not Russia, China, or India, or any other nuclear power, will most likely be the first to detonate another nuclear weapon and start thermonuclear war, World War III, and consequently blow up the whole planet, destroying all life form as we think we know it or know them. I would like to proceed my commentary. I would like to start my commentary and sharing my perspectives and insights with you on this grand rising, or this grand day, as mentioned before, wherever you are, by repeating a statement and a prediction, or if you prefer, repeating a prophecy that I, the Mystic Philosopher, a prophecy by I, the Mystic Philosopher, that those of you, my listeners, that have been listening to me for quite some time now, will no doubt remember hearing me made several times before. And it goes like this: from I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, before the Adamic race, and by extension the Adamic races of humankind, that are currently led, run, and governed by the United States of America, the Anglo-Saxon imperialist and colonialist, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, popularly known as NATO, the so-called European Union, or more correctly, the Caucasoid Union, or the Caucasian Union, aka the West, before they submit their hegemony, before they submit their God-given right to rule and subdue the earth, before they submit their inherent doctrine of manifest destiny on the world, before they submit to any other race of humankind, even one race within their own Adamic races, those races among their own Caucasoid race, that they consider to be inferior to them, aka below them, that they consider to be below them, let alone submit to us, the remnant of the pre-Adamic race, we the Earth's original organic humans, we the natural native earthly humans that are identifiable by our highly melanin skin or highly melanated and carbon skin, also known as Africans, before they surrender to us, they would and they will take a humongous but perverted pleasure and shred this our planet and Mother Earth of any and all life form. They will shred it to pieces. They would and they will blow it to oblivion, as the saying goes. They would and they will destroy all life forms of this our planet and Mother Earth in a, as it was the British, in a jiffy, and thereby make it our Mother Earth completely bare, desolate, and uninhabitable. Now, someone or many of you that might be listening to me right now might be no doubt disagreeing with my statement and my prediction while commenting and asking these questions. Why are you saying such nonsense? And why would you believe such nonsense? Do you honestly think that the United States and NATO are all mad? That's the question I'm sure a lot of you are asking or maybe asking. And it's quite a legitimate question, reasonable question. And before I get much deeper into, because I will be answering and getting into all of these later, but before I get much deeper into this talk, let me quickly answer this question or these questions. Up front, straight up front, with what I, the Mystic Philosopher, honestly think are very obvious and straightforward answers. And the first answer number one. From I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, quite unlike Russia, China, India, and possibly all other countries with the nuclear weapons, or with these deadly weapons, the United States and NATO, when it comes to war and starting a war, the evidence has shown, history and the evidence has shown that they don't issue idle threats. No, they don't issue idle threats. NATO and America, United States, NATO, call them one. They don't issue idle threats. They don't go around or about threatening their enemies or telegraphing their real intention to bombing them. Or they don't telegraph their intention. As long as the United States of America, coupled with NATO, I might add, as long as they consider you an enemy and a threat to their, what they call their national security, and above all their hegemony, as long as they consider you as one that possesses a real threat and one that is worthy of going to war with, you are going to get compensated with what they call a payload. What is the payload called? A preemptive strike. They don't skin up, They are hitting you. If they consider you to be an enemy, they're going to hit you first. And they are hitting you hard. And very hard, I might add. And for any of their enemies or any of their perceived enemies to think otherwise is not at all wise. Now, unlike the US and NATO, let me show a difference here. Unlike, from my perspective, that is, unlike the US, unlike the United States of America and their cohorts, their partners, NATO, Russia does issue warnings and threats, and they also telegraph their moves for their enemies to read their intentions. They tell you what they will do. And this, from my perspective, is where the US and NATO has the advantage. For example, here is a quote from an article titled, "How Likely is the Use of Nuclear Weapons by Russia?" that I found on Chatham House website at chathamhouse.org. And it is written by one Dr. Patricia Lewis, who's a research director, conflict Science and Transformation Director, International Security Program. And the subtitle that I am quoting directly from is, "What is Putin's nuclear weapons threat?" What is Putin's nuclear weapons threat? And I quote, "On the 21st of February, as part of his televised speech that heralded the Russian invasion of Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin issued what was interpreted as a threat to use nuclear weapons against NATO countries should they interfere in Ukraine. Russia will respond," quote, "Russia will respond immediately," he said, "and the consequences will be such as you have never seen in your entire history," unquote. Well, from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, the US or the United States and NATO don't and wouldn't make threats like that. They wouldn't make threats like that. They just do what they think or believe they have to do when they have to do it. The US or the United States. Number two, the United States of America has unreservedly tested and unapologetically used nuclear weapons before and without threats, provocation, or telegraphing their intent. And just to confirm this fact, here is a direct quote, another direct quote from Wikipedia, and I quote, "The United States was the first country to manufacture nuclear weapons and is the only country to have used them in combat with the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. Before and during the Cold War, it conducted over 1,000 nuclear tests and tested many long-range nuclear weapons delivery systems," unquote. So you see, yes, let's skin up. And the Mystic Philosopher, is hereby predicting that that they will and that they are going to do it again. I am predicting that. So stay tuned for more on this point in this my talk on this Grand Rising. I will get in more deeper into that. Number three, from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, while Russia and China and all the others with nuclear weapons might be thinking about self-preservation or, preserving themselves and their citizens and possibly the rest of humanity, the US and NATO are more concerned with losing their prestige. They are more concerned with losing their superiority. From the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, they are more concerned about losing their hegemony and power. They are more concerned about losing their status and position of world dominance. They are more concerned about losing their so-called leadership of the world, etc., etc. Not about who made that or who owned that. That is not a part of, from my perspective, observing them and think that I know who and what they are. Now, number four, the United States of America, in conjunction with NATO, see themselves as the superior, as the superiority power, and not just as a superpower. Yeah, even though Russia is considered a superpower, China, Japan, all of them with the nuclear, but America see themselves, the United States of America see themselves as, and NATO see themselves as the superiority, the real superpower. They must control, everybody else must fall in line behind them. Number five, from my perspective, Russia, China, India, and all the rest of countries just want to belong and to get along peacefully and respectfully with everyone, while US and NATO, their thing is to lead everyone, to lead their mission, their goal, their intent, and everything, as you shall shortly see, is to lead and dictate to everyone. They lead, everybody follow. And listen. Number 6. The question again that was asked, do you or honestly think, meaning do I, the Mystic Philosopher, honestly think that the United States and NATO are all mad? And the answer to this question is that, as you shall no doubt shortly see and hear, that yes, I, the Mystic Philosopher, do believe that they are all mad. Or at the very least, they are led by some very mad, aka some very insane humankind. And especially if or when the word MAD, M-A-D, is used as an acronym. Yes, M-A-D, meaning mutually assured destruction. Because from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, only evil and mad people or insane people in all sense of the word would and do invent, create, manufacture, distribute, and use nuclear weapons and all weapons of mass destruction. And I guess if most of you are listening are honest, you may agree with me, even if you don't agree with me publicly, but think about it. Who else would do it? Well, we're going to talk about that later. Now, please allow me now to be even more blunt. Let's get into the heat and this thing now. Allow me to be even more blunt and straightforward. From my perspective, the aforementioned Adamic race of humankind that currently run the world, that currently dominate things, that rule the world, will never submit. And they will never allow themselves to be conquered and become subservient to any other race on the earth. And under no circumstances will they submit or surrender to Russia, or to the Russians, or to China, thus the Chinese, or to India, thus the Indians, let alone them submit to Africa, thus Africans submit to us Africans, melanated people, which the evidence coupled with our experience have shown that of all the races, they despise us Africans the most. They would, you crazy, submit to. They blow this place like it never exists. To them, debt. Not only to themselves, but debt to our planet and Mother Earth before dishonor, before they surrender. Why do you think they make them weapons there? And I make more. And I devise all of the strategy to eliminate everybody and everything. They will never submit. They would rather blow up everything and everyone. They would rather blow up everything and everyone. Blow it up along with themselves before they submit. Just ask, and if possible, answer yourselves these questions as honest as is humanly possible, my people. If at all you're listening. Why did they meaning the aforementioned leaders of the Adamic race and the Adamic races and controllers of the world, namely the United States of America, the Anglo-Saxon imperialist and colonialist, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the so-called European Union, or more correctly, the Caucasoid or the Caucasian Union, aka the West. Just ask yourselves these questions. Why did they invent, create, manufacture, stockpile, and distribute all those guns, those deadly weapons, those deadly bombs, those biological weapons, those technological weapons, and thermonuclear weapons for mass destruction? Ask yourself why. Please ask yourselves, why are they? Again, they meaning the aforementioned leaders of the Adamic race and Adamic races and controllers of the world, namely the United States of America, the Anglo-Saxon imperialists and colonialists, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the so-called European Union, or more correctly, the Caucasoid Union or the Caucasian Union, aka the West. What did they invent? Why are they inventing, creating, manufacturing, stockpiling, and distributing more of these guns, or those guns, those deadly bombs, biological weapons, and nuclear weapons for mass destruction. Why? Yes, sir. Yeah, why? Please ask, and if possible, be honest and true, as honest as possible, and true to yourselves in answering yourselves this question. What mind? I mentioned it before, but let me repeat it. What mind and what mastermind that would invent, that would create, that would manufacture, that would stockpile and distribute guns, these deadly bombs, biological weapons and thermonuclear weapons, technological weapons, which are only for what? Mass destruction. They're only for killing, maiming, injuring, ruining people's lives, destroying humanity, mass destruction. What mind? Ask yourself. Maybe you never thought about it. Maybe some of you, because you live in this country and you're so proud of these things, you never thought about it. But ask yourself, what mind is behind it? Who or what is inspiring it? What mind and mastermind does that? What mind and what mastermind that are inventing, creating, manufacturing, stockpiling, and distributing guns, deadly bombs, biological weapons, and thermonuclear weapons, which are only for mass destruction? What mind and mastermind that are doing that? Which one does that and which one is doing that? Think about it, people. Please ask, and if possible, be as honest and true to yourselves in answering yourselves this question. What God? Whose God? And which God that would inspire them to perform such evil and to continue and to continue to be performing such evil? Ask yourself. Are you telling me that nuclear, these deadly weapons of mass destruction, which is unnatural and anti-nature, are you trying to tell me? Are you honestly believe that? That is good? To have these things and to create these things? To circumvent nature and try to create these weapons? And to destroy people and to murder? Are you telling me that is good? Well, we disagree on that, but no problem. From my Mystic Philosopher's perspective, the answer to all those questions and more is unadulterated evil, pure and simple. The evidence along with the record have shown and will no doubt continue to show and prove that there are ranks and there are status, there are classes, hierarchy and levels of power and authority, superiority and inferiority, etc., among and within the Adamic race, and by extension the Adamic races of humankind itself. And that can be traced back to their creation and institution by their God, aka the Adamic God, upon this our planet and Mother Earth, of which to date the United States of America and their aforementioned allies, namely the remaining Anglo-Saxon imperialist and colonialist, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the so-called European Union, or more correctly as mentioned before, the Caucasoid Union or the Caucasian Union, aka the West, consider themselves superior, and the others that are chosen by their God, aka rather not the others, but the ones, they consider themselves superior, and the ones that are chosen by their God, aka the Adamic God, to dominate, to subdue, and to rule in the aforementioned order all peoples and nations of the earth. And for those of you that might be listening to me for the first time and don't know what I'm talking about, please let me inform you, or let me remind you where all this is coming from by quoting from the Adamic race history and holy book itself, aka the Christian Holy Bible, according to Genesis 1 verse 26 to 28. And I quote, "Then God, the Adamic God, said, 'Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the earth. Unquote, the New International Version. And please note that when I, the Mystic Philosopher, said the United States of America and the aforementioned allies, I am not talking about the ordinary people or the ordinary citizens or the subjects of the United States or of the United States of America or its allies. Example, I'm not talking about the ordinary citizen or the ordinary subjects of the UK or France, of Italy or Germany, etc., etc. I am not even talking about some of these little visible politicians who in reality and in all practicality are just foot soldiers and slaves of their real bosses, their real masters, and the real, they're just upfront slaves of their real masters. But I'm talking about the mighty ones. Yeah, the untouchables, the elites, or the elects of the God of the earth, the elites of the God of the earth, the oligarchs, the classist, the fascist, and the globalist, the real, and in some cases, the unseen rulers and governments that run things from behind the scene. From my perspective, it is inherently rooted and programmed in the DNA and the conscious and subconscious psyche of the United States of America and its aforementioned allies, aka its humankind, namely, yes, the Anglo-Saxons, German imperialist and colonialist, the North Atlantic Trade Organization, NATO, the so-called European Union, or more correctly, yes, the Caucasoid Union, the Caucasian Union, yes, the Caucasoid West. It is rooted in their psyche, and programmed that the Slavic peoples, or if you prefer, that their own fellow Caucasoid or Caucasian or European peoples that are classified as Slavs and Slavic are their inferiors. In other words, they are their lords and masters. They are the elites, and the Slavs or the Slavic people are their subjects and slaves. Please let me pause here and remind you or inform you, my listeners, that this war between the Slavic country called Russia and the Slavic people called Russians and the United States and its allies, aka the West, is not one that is the result of some simple misunderstanding between peoples and nations. Not at all. But that it is one that is built and deeply rooted in inherent discrimination, inherent hatred, and in inherent superiority complex. In fact, to this day, some Caucasian people, aka European people, that are classified as Slavs and Slavic people / Slavic countries still are not and cannot be qualified in order to become a part of the elite club, the elite society called the European Union and NATO. And the few that are allowed in, like window dressing, the few that are allowed in the EU are by no means the master players in that organization. They are pretty much still the subservients. Careful analysis and observation coupled with activated common sense will show and prove that it is the same Caucasoid imperialists and colonizers that dominate the so-called European Union, aka the EU. In fact, and for the record, it is imperative that I point out these very important facts here, especially for you, my fellow highly melaninated people, aka my fellow Africans, and to whom it may concern, in order that you may all take careful notes of these things and to verify them for yourselves. And the facts are as follows. Fact number 1, that our most honorable African ancestors were not slaves. Listen carefully now. Our most honorable African ancestors were not slaves or Slavs, as you shall shortly see. Fact number 2, that they are by extension, and by extension we, their offspring and ascendants, were not born slaves. Fact number 3, that the word slave and the concept of chattel slavery was an evil alien concept to our most honorable African ancestors, and by extension it was and still is an evil alien concept to us, their offspring, their ascendant today. But that it is one that was brought upon them, our ancestors, and us by the malevolent Arab and Caucasoid invader and colonizer from the Caucasus Mountains, commonly called Europe. Fact number 4, that chattel slavery did not originate with us, or practiced by us, or practiced among our people. And what is chattel slavery? Some of you might be asking. Well, according to legaldictionary.net, and I quote, chattel slavery is the kind of slavery that most people think of when they try to imagine slavery. Chattel slavery involves the buying and selling of people as if they were pieces of property. Examples of chattel slavery or chattel slaves are those who were inherited from their owners, died and willed. That were inherited when their owners died and willed them to the next generation. Unquote. That's chattel slavery. Fact number 5. From my perspective, from my Mystic Philosopher's perspective, the gross ignorance and the unforgivable negligence of most, if not all, of our so-called leaders, melanin leaders I'm talking about, African leaders, if you will, African people that are considered leaders, our so-called leaders and our educators and lecturers, teachers, preachers, professionals, public speakers, entertainers, and historians, etc., etc. Their gross negligence and their gross ignorance and unforgivable negligence in labeling and identifying our most honorable ancestors, African ancestors, as slaves, and with slavery, and especially as if it was and is our natural predisposition and inherited traits. And because of this, their gross negligence and ignorance, they have consciously and unconsciously accepted and are identifying with the curse that was and is pronounced on the Slavs or the Slavic people as recorded in the Adamic race history and holy book, aka the Christian Holy Bible, and I quote, therefore you shall be under a curse, and your race shall always be hewers of wood and carriers of water unto the house of my God. Now therefore ye are cursed, and there shall never fail to be of your bondmen, of you rather, there shall never fail to be of you bondmen, both hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God, because you did this. God has condemned you. Unquote. That is in the book of Joshua 9 and verse 23. In fact, just like the curse word black and the curse words black and Negro and all their synonyms and euphemisms, it is as if they have owned and copyrighted them, meaning these leaders that I just mentioned from among us, have owned and copyrighted, or they would like to own and copyright the word slave and slavery, the word slavery and slavery, just as how they take hold of the word black, and as I mentioned before, Negro and all their synonyms and euphemisms, they lay claim to the word slavery. For as the evidence show that whenever and wherever the word slave and slavery, black and Negro, and all their synonyms and euphemisms are mentioned, they automatically identify themselves and our ancestors to them and with them. Yes. No mention or hardly any mention is ever made of the fact that it was and that it still is the malevolent ones that have broadcast and broadcast the curse of blackness and slavery upon us. And that they were also the ones that first broadcast and broadcast it upon their own race of people. In our gross ignorance and negligence, we allow and are allowing other people and all other races of people to show off, to be cocky among us, to show off on us, as if we were and as if we are born slaves. As if we were born slaves and as if we are born slaves. And that we are the only ones that were enslaved and are being enslaved. But I will have much more to say about that point at another time. Fact number 6. And the sixth and final fact for now that I will hereby highlight is the fact that the very words, listen carefully now, I'm not making this up. The very word Slav, S-L-A-V, and Slavs, and Slavic, etymologically and by meaning and definition means slaves. Therefore, a Slav is a slave. And by extension, the Slavic people are by meaning and definition and to their own aforementioned Caucasoid masters are nothing but subjects and slaves. And thus, and common sense, if at all activated, will affirm that all slaves are looked down on as being less than by their lords and masters. Yes, slave, even if you work in a company and you have a boss, that's why you call a boss. He supervise over you. Your status, even though they will try to talk about, what they call it, whatever in the workplace. But the fact is that people look down on you if they consider you as slaves, or depends on the job you hold, or the position you own, or the company. That's how the system set up, but that's another talk for another time. Yes, slaves are looked down on. Slaves are not treated as equal as their masters to their masters. The children of slaves are not treated and seen as equal to the, the children of their master, etc., etc. Just like those that are master of us call us their citizens, their subjects. And that is also why their masters will not and cannot allow them to rise above being slaves, let alone become masters and subdue them. Yes, you will see as I continue. You see this thing going on between Russia and the West? You have to understand where it's coming from. Yes, those that consider themselves the masters must ensure that those that they see as less than them be held down. You're correct. Listen, man, these things you won't hear anywhere else anyhow. And who are these Caucasoid, or who are these Caucasian people from the Caucasus Mountains, commonly called Europe today, that are called and classified as Slavs and the Slavic peoples? Who are they that I remember, words have meaning. Don't take words lightly. Don't make them fool and trick you. Right? Even though this is not my language or the Mendelian people's language, but it's important to understand the power of words and language and what is enveloping them. I'm sure most of you never understand, say, slave or Slav is not even an African word. It's not originated in our language. It is from the Caucasoid language family tree. It belongs to them. Even though a lot of people, as I said before, are trying to take hold and lay claim to it. Slavery, as I mentioned, slavery. It's as if nobody else has ever been slave. Anyway, now, so who are these people that are classified as Slavs and as the Slavic people, which means slaves? Well, according to Wikipedia, and I quote, present-day Slavic people are classified into East Slavs, chiefly Belarusians, Russians, Russins, and Ukrainians rather. Yes. There are Slavic people, they are classified as slaves, mean less than the high up race of Caucasoids. West Slavs, chiefly Czechs, Kashubs, Moravians, Polish, Silesians, Slovaks, and Sorbs, and southern, or rather South Slavs, chiefly Bashniks, Bulgarians, Croats, Macedonians, Montenegrins, Serbs, and Slovenists. Unquote. Yes, that is from Wikipedia. So these are the people that are long before anybody in Africa were seen and treated with this thing called chattel slavery. This was being practiced among them. These one whole set of people were called slaves and Slavs and Slavic. Look it up. Check it for yourself. I'm not making this thing up. And who were their slave masters, aka the Slavic masters? Who are the countries or the people that consider themselves to be superior to their own people? The bosses that supervise them and call them their subjects or see them as less than them. In other words, who enslaved the people that are classified as the Slavic people? Yes, all the Slavic people were enslaved. I don't mean make it up. Check the history. Yes, that's why they call them Slav. So who enslaved the people that are classified as, that were classified and that are classified today as the Slavic people, aka the slave people? Slavic people means slave people. Who were their real and practical slave masters? Well, to answer that question, please allow me to quote from the Living Webster's Encyclopedic Dictionary of the English Language on the word Slav and slave. Remember, this is not my language. I'm not making this up. That's why I have to go to the source. First, the word Slav, S-L-A-V, and I quote, of, pertaining to, of, comma, pertaining to, or characteristic of the Slavs, Slavic, one of a race of peoples widely spread over eastern, southern, rather southeastern and central Europe, including who? The Russians, the Ruthenians, which is Eastern Slavs, the Bulgars, the Sorbs, Croats, Slovenians, Slovenists, southern slaves, southern slaves, and the Polish, the Czechs, the Moravians, and the Slovaks, the Western slaves, or Western Slavs. So there you see, again, all of these people were what? And are classified as less than. Slaves means less than servants too. Yeah, I think I'm making this up. Please, I challenge anyone, check it for yourself. No, these people ain't gonna tell you that, because they like, everybody, and unfortunately, as I said before, our own melanin people and so-called educators and historians and all of that, they don't. You ever hear any of them talking about, with the exception of maybe a few, talking about the fact that we, melanin people, slavery, our chattel slavery didn't begin with us? No. You don't, no. Everything talk about slavery, black, they claim it. Anyway, second, the word slave, again, I'm quoting from the said, the Living Webster's Encyclopedic Dictionary of the English Language on the words Slav, S-L-A-V, and slave. Please verify it for yourself. So the second, quote, the word slave, this time talking about slave, first we deal with Slav, now we're dealing with slave, which is the same thing, right? The word slave meaning, and I quote, a Slav. Yeah, I wish I could copy and paste. I mean, it's from a dictionary, so it's from the book. I doubt you would find this online, but so I should show it. I, the Mystic Philosopher, ain't making this up. The word Slav meaning, and I quote, a slave. He said, many Slavs, which means have been reduced to slavery by who? Germanic conquerors. One, a slave or a Slav is slave one who is the property of an wholly subject to, not H-O-L-Y, wholly, W-H-O-L-L-Y, wholly meaning whole line, subject to another. A bond servant meaning, and bond servant, we talk about bond servant meaning a person or people that are bound in service without wages. One entirely under the domination of some influence as a slave to the use of drugs. A device, a slave to have a device operated by a machine or a mechanism that is under the control of another. And he continued giving the definition of the word slave. He said, to work like a slave or to toil or drudge. To traffic or hold slaves, unquote. So Slav, slave, slave, Slav. So when you are called a Slav, those who are calling you or naming you Slav are seeing you as being slaves, servants, and less than them. To be conquered, to be used, to be abused, to be put down, you name it. Just like how they see us, they call our people black. Then they blacklist us as being meaning nothing good, as being evil and blah 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 blah. I dealt with that elsewhere. I won't continue on that right now. So here we see and know that the Slavs, or at the very least, many of the Slavic people, aka the Caucasian people or peoples, were reduced to slavery by the Germanic conquerors, who were and are their fellow Caucasian people. Germans are the same Caucasian people. The evidence and the record will also no doubt show that it was and that it is the same Germanic conquerors that conquered Britain, or the place called Britain, and became what? The English Anglo-Saxon, that later invaded other motherland, invaded our motherland called Africa, and then later the Caribbean, India, Asia, etc., and brought along with them, because the leopard not change them spot. It's amazing how some people think these people can change and be anything other than what they are. They can't. And they brought, when they do that they brought slavery, they brought along with them their evil, called what? Slavery, and impose it, chattel slavery, and impose it on our beloved, most honorable African ancestors, and by extension upon us today. Some of you guys think you're free. Free where? You crazy? Now, let's look at it deeper on the word Slav again. Because I know a lot of you, I think I'm making this thing up. And I can give you all the source. I give you all the source where my information is coming from. Where this is coming from. You can check it and recheck it for yourself. So let's look at it deeper. Now on the word Slav again. And who and what it represents according to the online etymology dictionary. You can Google this for yourself. You can just look it up right now for yourself. Let me give you the address, the URL. www.etmonline.com. Online.com, etymologyonline.com, if you will. Quote, Slav. This is some dictionary now. You can look it up and bear witness for yourself. And I quote, Slav, a person who is the chattel or property of another, unquote. Remember I gave you the definition of the word chattel before? So a Slav is a person who is, a Slav is a person who is the chattel are property of another, unquote. So there are some people who still consider themselves owners and masters of the Slavic people. They still think that, some of them still think that they still are superior to us and own us melanin people, African people. It continues. The online etymology dictionary continues, and I quote, Slav, so used in this secondary sense became, rather, in this secondary sense, because of the many Slavs sold into slavery by conquering peoples, unquote. Yeah, that's how we were the first people that were sold into slavery. African people were not the first people that were sold and became chattel into slavery. In fact, the word, as I mentioned before, came from the people who own it and devise it. Commentary on the word Slav. Continue. Yes, let me continue my commentary on the word Slav from the online etymology dictionary, and I quote, the oldest Western history of the Slavs can be shortly summarized. Myriads of slave hunts and the enrollment of entire peoples. Enrollment means the slavery of entire peoples. The Slav was the most prized. Listen now from the dictionary. The Slavic people, the Slav was the most prized of human goods. That was prior to them coming to Africa. Yeah. With increased strength outside his Marash land of origin, hardened to the uttermost against all privations, industrious, content with little good humor, and cheerful, he filled the slave markets of Europe, Asia, and Africa. In fact, these people, the Slav, was traded in Africa. Yeah, sit there. And let me make it up, unquote. So please let me pause and make another quick but very important comment here, my people. People of the world, and especially you, my fellow highly melanated people, aka my fellow African brothers and sisters, must know, understand, and overstand that chattel slavery, as earlier defined, did not originate in Africa or on the continent of Africa or by Africans. Chattel slavery is not and was not an African ideology. It was not an African philosophy and practice, but that it is of Arabs, Caucasoid and Caucasian, aka European origins and practice. Commentary, let me continue with commentary from the online dictionary. Continues, and I quote, it must be remembered that for every Slavonic slave who reached his destination, at least 10 succumb to inhuman treatment during transport and to the heat of the climate, unquote. Hold on. I wonder if you hear that. Let me pause and comment on this fact again. It must be remembered that for every Slavonic slave who reached his destination, in other words, who they take from the Caucasus Mountain and let's say to Africa, and wherever, at least 10 of them succumb to inhuman human treatment. They treat them so bad, they're dead. They succumb to it during transport and also to the heat of the climate because they come from a cold place. People, and especially you, my fellow African people, that are the remnant and survivors of the malevolent Caucasoid transatlantic human trafficking and human trade, please ask yourselves this question. If these Caucasoid or these Caucasian human traffickers and slave traders were that brutal and inhumane and merciless to their own Caucasian people, to their own Caucasoid race, to their own flesh and blood, to their own kind, can you now imagine Or can you now even begin to imagine what they had done to our African ancestors? And what logic will you try and sensibly employ in thinking that they have changed? And let not change his part, and while expecting them to treat us and while expecting them to treat us with any degree of humanity and respect today. Why? What logic are you using to think that that's possible? Alepa can't change his spot. Let me continue. The commentary from the online etymology dictionary continues. And I quote, indeed, Abraham, 10th century, himself, in all probability, a slave dealer, says, and I quote, and the Slavs cannot travel to Lombardy on account of the heat, which is fatal to them. Hence their high price. So when one make it, why the price high? The Arabian geographer of the 9th century tells us how the Magyars, 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 in the Pontus steppe dominated all the Slavs dwelling near them. The Magyars made raids upon the Slavs and took their prisoners along the coast of Kirk, where the Byzantines came to meet them and gave Greek brocades and such wares in exchange for the prisoners. And this is a quote from the Cambridge Medieval History, Volume 2, 1913, unquote. Now, very notable among the Slavs. Now you understand who the Slavs are, where the word come from, and stuff forth. Now, very notable among the Slavs, aka the Slavic peoples, are who? The Russians and the Ukrainians. Yes, Russia and Ukraine, are the Russians and the Ukrainians are, as mentioned before, as you see for yourselves, are who? Among the Slavic peoples. The evidence is also hereby showing and proving that the Russians and Ukrainians are all Slavs and one people. Different cultures, yes, but still one people. They are brothers and sisters. Please let me also remind you that behold, the wicked change not, and nor can the wicked change. They are predisposed to what? Wickedness and the practicing of what? Evil. For example, the Germanic and Magyars raiders, as mentioned in the quote from the online etymology online dictionary, right? The raiders, the Magyars, raiders, conquerors, human traffickers, and slave masters of yesterday are the same Germanic and Magyars, conquerors, human traffickers, and slave masters via their heirs and successors today. And that their method and device for control are to divide and conquer. And that it fail not, divide and conquer fail not. And it change not. And that is how they divide, conquer, and enslave the peoples of the world. And that is how they are continuing to divide, conquer, and enslave all of us, the peoples of the world. And the evidence has shown that in the not too distant past, they have divided, conquered, and enslaved the Slavic people, including the Russians and the Ukrainians. And the evidence is now showing that they are doing, not only attempting to do it, but they are doing it all over again. Or at least, let's say, attempting to do it. Depends on how you look at it. Yes, they are doing it all over again. Anyhow, the Russian try to lose its place, or these people try to rise above, they're gonna put them down. If you are in doubt of what I, the Mystic Philosopher, is saying, then just simply trace the bloodline, aka the DNA and genealogy of most, if not all, of these, our wicked, unconscionable, abominable, demon-possessed, fascist, globalists, and so-called leaders that are in authority and are ruling us today, are ruling over us today. And you will no doubt discover that they are indeed the seeds and literal descendants of the aforementioned devils. They change not. It's just people are deceived into thinking that better can come of devils. A devil is 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 a devil. Should make a song out of that. Here is a quote from an article on a website called Russia Beyond at www.rbth.com/history. The title of the article is Slavery in Germany: How Millions of Soviet citizens were forced to work for the Nazis. And just in case some of you might not know or might not remember, Nazis are Germans. When the Nazis occupied the USSR in the early 1940s, they used millions of Ukrainians, Belarusians, and Russians as forced labor. See, unquote. Check it for yourself. That's just the idea, 1940. For your information and from I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspectives, these are the same people, aka Germanic conquerors, that are masquerading under the disguise of so-called democracy. The UN, the United States, the UK, and NATO, etc., etc. And it is by their fruits. That is how we know them. As I tell you, them just can't look how they try to disguise the evil will come out. Yeah. How you know them? By their fruits. These are they that are written about in their own history and holy book, and I quote, the way of peace. They do not know. These are conquerors, warriors, raiders, you name it. Oppressors, demon possessed, you name it. And thus it is written, the way of peace. They do not know. There is no justice in their paths. They have turned them into crooked roads. No one who walks along them will know peace. Unquote. That is from the Adamic Race History book according to Isaiah chapter 59 verse 8, New International Version. So when you say people are making war and all these type of wars and provoking wars and developing weapons of wars and just warlike and warmongers, no, you know, there's no peace. They know the way of peace, they know not. In fact, let me quote it from the King James Version. The way of peace they have not known, and there is no justice in their ways. You wonder why we can't get justice from them? The world can get justice. Mean fairness. Justice simply mean fairness. Just be fair. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. You ever wonder why? Treat people with respect. You ever wonder why? Because that's what they are. They have made themselves crooked parts. Whoever takes that way shall not know peace, unquote. That's from the King James Version, same Isaiah. These are they that do any and everything within their power to prevent that which may be best described as a multipolar world order. These are they that will do any and everything within their powers to maintain their force, repressive and oppressive hegemony, thereby holding captive and mentally and physically enslaving the peoples of the world. So in closing, my people, please let me again repeat my statement and prediction. Or if you prefer, please let me repeat my doomsday. Some would refer to some refer to it as my doomsday or doomsnight prophecy. And it goes again, it goes like this from I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspective. Before the Adamic race, and by extension the Adamic races of humankind that are currently led run and governed by the United States of America, the Anglo-Saxon imperialists and colonists, or colonialists. Remember, this is not my language, so you who know better, please pronounce the word properly in your head. Before the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the so-called European Union, or more correctly, the Caucasoid Union or the Caucasian Union, aka before the West, before they submit their hegemony, their God-given right to rule and subdue the earth, their inherent doctrine of manifest destiny on the world, before they submit to any other race of humankind, even one within their own Adamic races, those races among their own Caucasoid race that they consider to be inferior to them, aka below them, the Slavic Caucasian race spoken of earlier, let alone them submitting to us, the remnant of the pre-Adamic race, we the earth's original organic humans, we the natural native earthly humans that are identifiable by our highly melaninated skin or carbon skin, aka Africans. Before they surrender to us, they would and they will take a humongous but perverted pleasure and shred this our planet and Mother Earth of any and all life forms. They would and they will blow it to oblivion. They would and they will destroy all life forms of this our planet and Mother Earth in a jiffy, and thereby make it completely bare, desolate, and uninhabitable. Now, with all that said, as customary, I think I shall end this talk right here and now. Until next time, if there is a next time, when and where I will share some more of my thought-provoking, my unique thought-provoking perspectives and insights on someone or on something else. And if there is not a next time here, and if we are sent back by these blown back to pieces or sent back to our source and sources as a result of, yes, the Adamic race and races colliding with each other, or them gone mad, or madder, got the madder rating, I'm just getting madder, or more mad. Well, I do hope to see and recognize some of you on the other side or in another dimension. Thanks for listening, and I do hope that I was able to again provoke you to see and to think of things a little differently. Or yes, a little differently, yeah. In the meantime and between time, please hold it up, my people. Hold it up, not down. Please be more and much more and not less. Don't let them bless you. Don't let them bless you. Let them be more here. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. I say.